with the mission to keep as many men on as many guns for as long as possible. We call him Doc. Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. And now your host, Aaron Chief Seabird.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. Hey, this is where I get to talk about the issues that I've dealt with, the combat that I've dealt with, the situations I've dealt with, my life story, history, kind of thing. A quick shout out to Brian Colburn at SitchRadio.com for putting this all together. And Joey out there that's working too. The buttons on a bunch of different days, but I got Brian today for a little bit. But Sitch Radio does a whole bunch of podcasting. If you're interested in podcasting, reach out, let them know. It's really cool. And although I talk a lot about the PTSD Foundation of America and Warrior Built Foundation, there's all kinds of really incredible foundations out there, incredible organizations doing some incredible things. I love to get them on my show. I love to talk about them. I love to talk about where the rubber hits the road for our combat vets and a whole bunch of other things. So with that, today's show is gonna focus on the fighting hole, and we talk about a fighting position or fighting hole. There's a lot to it. When you have a two-man fighting hole, a lot of things that go on during the day. You're just constantly digging. You're doing a lot of work to it. You're creating this whole environment where you're hopefully going to be safe from all kinds of different firing from the enemy, from incoming mortar rounds to rockets to other things. As long as they don't land in your hole, you should be good to go, as long as it's not too close. Obviously, you've seen some of the craters that are being created in today's modern warfare. They can reach right into your hole if they're close enough. So, these fighting holes give you this sense of security. This is where you're going to live. This is where you're going to sleep. You're going to hang out with somebody that you may or may not get along with. But it's your duty to hold this position. There's a lot to it. This is where your battle buddy effect takes place. This is where a lot of things take place. You got to listen to a lot of people coming in and checking on your fighting hole, leadership running around doing some checks, bringing you ammo, supplies, food, all these different things that you got to constantly maintain this position. And you want to set it up so that it's facing the enemy in a certain way, and your buddy has the right and left lateral limits, and you're looking over at the other fighting hole, and it also has left or right lateral limits, and you're wanting to interlock your range of fire, so you're covering every angle that the enemy might be coming in. And in this process, you're constantly working on this fighting hole. You're making it better, making it more ergonomically friendly, so you can put stuff on shelves or do little things to it that make it a little bit more personable. You got to dig this giant grenade sump, that's basically the size of your foot or your leg, so your leg can go in there. So if a grenade comes in, you kick it down and it's at a certain angle so that when the blast comes, it doesn't blast on you. It's basically in line with the far wall, one of these walls, and it's in a direction that will come out in only a very small direction, and everybody else turns to the one side of the fighting hole, so that blast doesn't get you. So there's all these different things that happen in your mind. You have to kind of put together this plan of building this buddy plan, this whole situation. And then when the enemy comes and you're maybe it's at night, and usually it is. It's super early in the morning. We have this whole thing where we got to get up extra early because it's the time that the enemy most likely will attack. But during the night, you could have some serious, breaches on your area, and the enemy could show up, and only one of you may be awake at the time. So you're covering this whole range, and then all of a sudden you're waking up your buddy. He's got to get on the gun and get some rounds down range with you. And or maybe not, or maybe he's just gonna wake up and watch the sunset because his left and right lateral limits are kind of towards the sun. Meanwhile, you're still laying down rounds because right in your range of fire is the enemy, and so you're putting it down. You're laying it all down, and one of you could develop PTSD from this, or maybe not. But there will be a change because you've now had to take and you've had to experience where your life has been threatened, your life has been almost taken, or possibly even taken, and now you maybe lost your buddy who maybe wasn't paying attention, or got hit because that's just the way nature is. Um, it's one of those things. And when we take some of the courses, it says, hey, when you go to the battlefield, Marines will die. We will die on the battlefield, some of us. And laying there on the battlefield after being hit with a mortar round, I understand this principle of, hey, everything changes in that instant. Your whole life flashes before your eyes, kind of thing, where you kind of measure yourself out as a human being, and how did you do? How did things work out? Are you okay? And by the end of it, I was comfortable and ready to go. But that may not be the case for everybody. And some people may just be like holding on for dear life because they haven't maybe done everything in their life, or however they measure their life. One may have PTSD, one may not. And it may not be the guy that was pulling the trigger all the time. It may be the other guy who didn't even see some trigger time, who was sleeping, who woke up, and by the time he woke up, everything was fine and dandy and back to normal. But he didn't have a chance. He woke up into this whole situation of craziness, and had to orientate himself and become this thing, or whatever it is. Um, People are people. And when you talk about people are people, meaning we were all brought up a certain way, not always the same way, but a certain way. And when I talk about this, I talk about this because not everybody's going to develop PTSD. But sometimes when you're in the fighting holes with each other, and you've been in this situation, and you're dealing with some trauma, and you want to bring it out, you want to talk about it, and the first thing you hear out of someone's mouth is, "Ah, I was in the fighting hole with you. I was there with you. Why are you not able to handle it? Why are you such a pussy? Why are you such a pansy? Why are you this?" And this is not the way to go. This is not the way to hear. This is not, you know, each one of us as human beings, we only have a certain limit on how much we can take in life. And am I going to say PTSD is affects everybody? No, but I will say that combat changes each one of us in some way. It either makes us, it can make you slightly jaded or way jaded. It can change how you perceive moral behaviors, things of that nature. It can change how your whole life was, um, reality wise. It can change your reality, and it can either make you a better person, or maybe even a worse person, or an in between that somewhere. But I will say that the camaraderie, the time we take to talk about it, the battle buddy scenario, the leadership, the help, the support, the um, whatever you want to call it, it's super important to be involved in your life. And I talk about it all the time. But it's just one of those things. You can go and experience the same thing right next to the guy next to you, but your experiences can be totally different. And I want to say that because so often that's the case. So often we're all in our own reality, our own world, our own truth. Um, how that looks, how that irons out, how you talk about it, how you display, these things just come about. And being to combat 3 separate times, and my first time, every night we dug a fighting hole, individual fighting hole or a sleeping hole, sometimes both. But you always, you always want to remember where everything's at, where your battle buddies are, where the secondary fighting position might be, your egress and your advancements. So when you think about all these different things that you got to think about, um, a lot of things can come about and you don't really understand until you understand. And what I mean by that, there's a lot of things at night that kind of happen, and you don't really realize what it's all about until the morning when you actually see the effect. Or you get blown up like me, and I didn't really know what happened to me because I couldn't register the process of explosion. And then I turned around. Did it blow up on my back? Did it blow up in the front of me? I finally realized it blew up in the front of me, and I turned, but my mind didn't register that I was hit until I had turned. So there's some disconnect to the actual understanding of the situation until you look back on it and you focus on some of the things and the details and the different things that kind of surprise you. Just like trying to figure out why this mortar round hit my ankle and broke my talus and did all this stuff. And I'm on a platform that's 3 feet off the deck, and the mortar round lands, but some piece hits my talus bone, and the talus, was my foot in an upward position, like I was taking a step, um, or was it a total um, deflection off of the roof and a ricochet right into my ankle? These are the things that I have to kind of think about and try to piece together. It's just like when my very first night uh, in Iraq. I remember very distinctly that I didn't really mean to, but I did. I dug my fighting hole on a black ant hill, big black ants, and they were biting me throughout the night. And I thought I was getting stung by like scorpions or whatever. But I just had to deal with it because I was in a fighting hole, didn't know what was going on, explosions happening all over the place. Pretty far off, thank goodness, but they were happening. So in the morning, when I look at all my gear, I have to shake everything out because there's ants all over everything, and big black crazy ants. And I probably got bit about 7 times till I zipped up my sleeping bag and pretty much dug my head in. Um, but and I didn't really get to see it until after we cleared everything out, we're rolling everything up, putting everything away, and the sun's finally coming up, and we're actually getting ready to move. But we're already in a staged position to ready to do that. I look in this hole, and there's just ants everywhere. So that was kind of a unique deal. And then to top it off, we had to roll our cami netting up, and our cami netting was rolled in such a way that we could just unroll it. Everything was kind of under cami netting right off the bat. So it was like a giant burrito on top of our vehicles that would just roll out, and we'd already be in camouflage. But in that process, there's this cactus that I rolled my hand on. And this is like, super crazy um, cactus bush that's like a tree with spikes on it. Um, and my hand's getting rolled up in this thing. It's like so freaking painful. I'm like, what the heck? I don't see that until later. And then I have to remember that that's in there because it's rolled up in the cami netting. So there's all these really weird, quirky things that that come to your mind that you're trying to figure out, and you don't really get to figure it out till later. But what you don't want to have you don't want to have your leadership fail you by saying, "Hey, you're a pussy," or this, and that. And that happens so often until later on when finally leadership started to identify this as a PTSD related issue. It's a legit thing. We're losing veterans left and right to PTSD, to suicide, to all these different things, and it's time to take a look at it. So the generals came down and said, "Hey, this is a real issue. Address it accordingly. Be involved in yourself. Be involved in your life." And fortunately and unfortunately, medical is optional. So no matter how much PTSD you got, you can deny it all you want up until the end of your career and beyond. Um, but it doesn't mean the end of the world just because you might have some changes in yourself. What it means is that you're growing as a human being, and you must adjust so that you still can taste uh, love, compassion, empathy, some of these things that kind of fall to the wayside uh, a little bit, and that might just need adjustments in your life. But I just want to say, in this fighting whole situation, this fighting whole effect, two separate people from two walks of life, brought up religiously different, brought up from whatever different, this, and that. one or both may have PTSD, and this PTSD may affect them in totally different ways. Um, or they might just have a change in their attitudes in life. But war does change people. It requires a lot of hypervigilance. It requires a lot of attention to detail. It requires a lot of mental fortitude, because you're always awake. You're always dealing with things. You're always engaged. You're always looking for the enemy. You're always looking for the dangers. A lot of crazy stuff that goes into that, and that effect may affect you in some different way. All I'm just saying is be involved in your life. Uh, if you're taking walks in the bad parts of your life, in a negative effect, in really bad deals, put yourself back on track as best you can. Move forward in a positive direction. Be involved with doing something that's incredible, that works for you, that has some opportunities for you in life, whatever that might look like, and get out there and do something that maybe you wouldn't do. Different hobbies, um, but staying in the home, isolating, dealing with things, drinking, alcohol, drugs, these things catch up with you. So that self care, that that time in the gym, that time with your battle buddy, that real discussion that you're going to have, super important. And then maybe being involved with a warrior group or your psychologist, making sure you're taking your meds appropriately and on time, and not getting into self medication. If you are going to self medicate, should be with the gym, uh, vitamins that are good, better food, better choices with your food, better choices with everything, better alcohol choices if you're drinking way too much, slowing all that down to a manageable point of view. But yeah, take that fighting hole position and run with it, and understand that there's a lot to it. There's a lot involved in it. And each of us that went to combat, we had some fighting hole experience or time, um, or some sort of fortified position, and we had to hang out with our battle buddies in that, and we were all affected in different ways. But hey, um, I'm just glad to be able to do this show. I'm glad. I'm honored to be part of Warrior Built and the PTSD Foundation. I'm honored to be part of so many other great organizations in some ways, to reach out to those organizations and utilize them, and say, hey, I got this vet dealing with this. I got this going on, and I do. I have some vets dealing with things. I got a couple of them in jail. There's some really cool guys doing some other great things. They're moving forward in some really positive directions. But there's a lot of guys that are about ready to fall off the wagon and about ready to lose their life, because suicide's a real thing, and this PTSD is a real thing. But how you treat it, how you treat yourself, is super important. So treat yourself good, get involved with your life. And thanks for listening to Combat Vet Vision. Hey, this is Aaron Siebert. Lucky to be alive after being hit with a mortar round April 2006. We are in April. My live day is coming up on the 27th. But until next time, strength and honor. Out.